The stars outside the window looked like scattered diamonds. 7-year-old pressed her small hands against the cold glass and counted them. She had reached 47 when her father's voice called from behind. "Stay close to me today," Ambassador Park said. He was a tall man with tired eyes and a gentle smile. "They are different from us. They don't understand children the way we do." Nodded, but her attention was already wandering. The diplomatic vessel Horizon's Grace had docked at Station 9, and through the windows she could see the alien station stretching in all directions. It was beautiful and strange, with curved walls that looked like the inside of a seashell. They themselves were tall reptilian creatures with scales that shifted color when they moved. Thought they looked like the dragons from her storybooks, except they walked on 2 legs and wore long robes. Lieutenant stood by the door, his hand resting on his weapon. He was young, barely 25, and this was his first assignment protecting civilians. He watched with a soft expression. She reminded him of his little sister back on Earth. "Ambassador, the delegation is ready," said Took's hand. "Remember what I said. Stay with the other children in the waiting area. I'll come get you when the meetings are finished." The waiting area was a large room with curved benches and strange plants that glowed faintly blue. 3 other children from the diplomatic staff sat there, playing games on their tablets. Joined them, but she quickly grew bored. The games were too easy. The other children were too quiet. She noticed a hallway leading away from the waiting area. Soft golden light spilled from somewhere deeper inside. Looked around. The adults were talking among themselves. No one was watching. She slipped away. The hallway curved gently, and the golden light grew brighter. Followed it like a moth drawn to flame. The walls here were covered in strange symbols that seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them. The air smelled like incense and something older, something that made her think of dust and forgotten rooms. At the end of the hallway stood a door. It was open just a crack. Pushed in. Inside was a circular chamber filled with golden light. In the center stood a tall pillar made of black stone, and around it sat 12 in white robes. Their eyes were closed. They were humming a low, deep sound that felt in her chest. She stepped inside, curious. Her foot touched a tile on the floor, and it made a soft clicking sound. Every opened their eyes at once. For a moment nothing happened. Then one of them screamed. It was a terrible sound, high and sharp, like breaking glass. The others joined in, pointing at with clawed fingers. "Desecration," one of them shouted in broken human language. "The sacred chamber is violated." Stumbled backward, suddenly afraid. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." Strong hands grabbed her. Guards had appeared from nowhere, their scales flashing red with anger. They lifted her off the ground like she weighed nothing. "Let me go," screamed. I want my father." The screaming brought Ambassador running. He burst into the chamber with Lieutenant right behind him, both of them breathing hard. "Release my daughter," shouted. "She's just a child, she didn't know." The high priest of the chamber stepped forward. He was ancient, his scales faded to gray, his eyes cold as winter stones. "She has walked on sacred ground. She has seen the forbidden rituals. The punishment is death." His face went white. No, you can't. She's 7 years old. She made a mistake. I'll pay any price, make any offering." "There is no offering," the high priest said. "There is only cleansing." Lieutenant drew his weapon. "I won't let you hurt her." 20 guards raised their weapons in response. Was fast, but he wasn't fast enough to fight 20 soldiers. 2 of them grabbed him from behind and forced him to his knees. Cried, tears were streaming down her face. "Help me." Fell to his knees. He begged, he pleaded. He offered everything he had, his position, his wealth, his own life. They watched him with cold eyes and said nothing. What happened next took only seconds, but for everyone who witnessed it, time seemed to slow down. The high priest raised a curved blade, looked at her father one last time. Her small voice, amplified by the chamber's strange acoustics, was accidentally broadcast across all human frequencies in the station. "I'm scared." The blade fell. Ambassador Park's scream echoed through the station. Lieutenant broke free from his captors and threw himself forward, but he was too late. He was always going to be too late. On the horizon's grace, the crew heard final words through the speakers. In the engine room, a young technician dropped his tools. On the bridge, the captain gripped her console until her knuckles turned white. The transmission traveled at the speed of light. It reached Earth in 17 minutes. In the United Terran Council chambers, 200 of humanity's most powerful leaders sat in stunned silence. They listened to a little girl say she was scared. They heard her father's scream. Then they heard nothing. Fleet Admiral Sumi stood slowly. She was a small woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much war. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the chamber. "Activate Protocol Absolute Zero." No one objected. No one asked questions. Across the chamber, men and women who had spent their careers arguing about budgets and borders and trade agreements all nodded in agreement. A child was dead. The galaxy was about to learn what that meant. Luna Base was the heart of Earth's military power. Built deep inside the moon, it held enough ships and weapons to fight a war against any enemy in the galaxy. For 300 years, those weapons had gathered dust. Humanity preferred peace. Humanity believed in diplomacy. That belief died with. Admiral Sumi walked through the command center with quick, precise steps. Officers saluted as she passed, but she barely noticed. Her mind was focused on one thing only: the mission ahead. President was waiting in the war room. She was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes that now looked hollow. On the table in front of her, a holographic display showed her face. The image was from her 7th birthday just 2 months ago. She was smiling, holding a stuffed rabbit. "I've watched her die 43 times, said quietly. "I keep thinking maybe I missed something. Maybe there was a moment when we could have saved her." Sumi sat down across from her. "There wasn't. They made their choice. Now we make ours." 8 billion people live on Prime, said. "Civilians, families, children." "I know. If we do this, we become something else. Something the galaxy has never seen before." Sumi leaned forward. "The galaxy has already seen what happens when they kill our children. They laughed at us. They called us weak. They said humans don't have the stomach for real war." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I intend to prove them wrong." The door opened and 2 more people entered. The first was Captain, commander of the dreadnought Retribution. He was a large man with a face and hands that never stopped shaking. The second was Doctor, a thin woman with glasses and nervous eyes. She was the chief scientist of the Prometheus project. "You asked for us," Admiral said. Sumi nodded. "Sit down, both of you." Doctor placed a small device on the table. A hologram appeared showing 3 massive ships arranged in a triangle formation. "The Prometheus Array," she said. 3 ships working together, firing synchronized energy beams into a planet's core. The resulting destabilization causes a chain reaction. The planet's mantle liquefies. The crust breaks apart. Within minutes, the entire world becomes— She paused, searching for the right word. "Uninhabitable." "You mean destroyed," said flatly. "Yes, destroyed." President stared at the hologram. "We built this weapon. Why?" "As a deterrent," said. "The idea was that no species would ever attack humanity if they knew we could destroy their in response. We never intended to actually use it." "Intentions change," Sumi said. She turned to, "I need someone to lead the assault fleet. Someone who won't hesitate when the moment comes. I'm asking you." Was silent for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small photograph. It showed a young girl with bright eyes and a missing front tooth. "My daughter. She was 9 years old when a raiding party attacked our colony. They killed everyone in her school, 47 children. The Galactic Assembly called it an unfortunate incident and did nothing. He placed the photograph on the table. "I've been waiting 10 years for this moment. I'll lead your fleet, Admiral." Closed her eyes. What about the civilians, the ones who had nothing to do with death? "We'll broadcast evacuation warnings," Sumi said. 3 hours. Anyone who wants to leave can leave. And the ones who can't, the sick, the elderly, the children. Sumi met the president's gaze without flinching. They had 300 years to teach their leaders that killing human children was wrong. They failed. The room fell silent. Outside the window, Earth hung in the darkness of space, blue and green and beautiful. Somewhere down there, his mother was sitting in an empty apartment, holding her daughter's stuffed rabbit. "Do it," said finally. Her voice cracked on the words. "God forgive us, but do it." The orders went out within the hour. Across human space, 300 warships began moving toward a single point. Soldiers who had never fired a shot in anger checked their weapons. Engineers who had built the Prometheus ships ran final diagnostics on systems they hoped would never be activated. Captain stood on the bridge of the Retribution and watched his crew prepare. They were young, most of them, too young to remember the wars of the past century, too young to understand what they were about to do. His first officer, a woman named, approached him. "Captain, the crew is ready, but I have to ask, are we really going to do this? Destroy an entire planet?" Looked at's photograph, now taped to his console. They killed a 7-year-old girl because she walked into the wrong room. They killed my daughter because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. How many more children have to die before we say enough? Had no answer. On Luna Base, Admiral Sumi watched the fleet departure on her tactical display. 300 green dots moving in perfect formation across the star map. In 6 hours, they would reach Prime. In 6 hours, 8 billion would face humanity's answer. Doctor appeared at her side. "Admiral, I have to tell you something. Once we use the Prometheus array, the galaxy will never look at humanity the same way. We'll be marked as a species capable of extinction-level warfare. Every other civilization will either fear us or try to destroy us before we destroy them." Sumi turned to face her. "Good. Let them fear us. Let them know that the price of human blood is measured in worlds. Let them understand that we are not prey." She looked back at the tactical display, at the 300 ships carrying humanity's rage toward the stars. "We gave them peace," she said softly. "They gave us war. Now they will learn what war with humanity truly means." Prime was a beautiful world. From space, it looked like a jewel made of green and gold wrapped in white clouds. Its cities stretched across 3 continents. Its oceans teemed with life. 8 billion called it home. They had 6 hours left. The first hour began with silence. The Defense Command detected strange readings at the edge of their star system. Sensors showed ships emerging from hyperspace. 1, then 10, then 50, then more than they could count. 300 human warships appeared in perfect formation, blocking out the stars. High Sovereign received the news in his palace. He was the ruler who had approved the execution of the human child. When his generals told him about the human fleet, he laughed. "Let them come," he said. "They are soft creatures. They write poetry and cry over small things. They do not have the stomach for war." He was wrong. The second hour brought fire. Captain's vanguard fleet swept through the outer defense stations like a storm. They had built these stations to stop pirates and small raiding parties. They had never imagined facing the full fury of humanity's military. Ensign sat at her weapons console on the Retribution. She was 22 years old, fresh from the academy, and this was her first battle. Her hands shook as she targeted the first defense platform. "Ensign," Captain said from his command chair, "fire when ready." Press the button. The platform exploded in a ball of orange flame. She felt sick to her stomach, but she kept firing. The image of his face, broadcast across every human ship, glowed on her secondary screen, a reminder of why they were here. By the end of the second hour, every orbital station around Prime was burning wreckage. The third hour brought a choice. Admiral Sumi's flagship, the Final Word, positioned itself above the planet's northern pole. She opened a channel that broadcast on every frequency. "People of Prime," she said in their language, "your leaders killed a human child, a 7-year-old girl who committed no crime except curiosity. For this we have come. You have 3 hours to evacuate your world. After that, there will be no mercy." The message played on repeat. In cities across the planet, looked at each other in confusion and fear. Many thought it was a trick. Others began running toward the evacuation ports. High Sovereign broadcast his own message. "Do not believe the human lies. They are weak creatures who only know how to threaten. Stay in your homes. Our defense fleet will destroy them." The defense fleet, 200 ships strong, finally arrived from a nearby system. They found the human fleet waiting for them. The fourth hour was a massacre. Captain led the retribution into the heart of the formation. Human ships were faster, better armed, and crewed by soldiers who had nothing left to lose. The battle lasted 47 minutes. By the end, 183 ships were destroyed or disabled. Human losses, 7 ships. On Prime, panic spread. Citizens who had believed their sovereign now fought each other for places on evacuation shuttles. Parents carried children through crowded streets. The elderly and sick were left behind. The fifth hour brought desperation. Approximately 200,000 managed to reach evacuation ships and escape into space. The human fleet let them go. Admiral Sumi had given her word. Anyone who left would be spared. But 8 billion remained. High Sovereign finally understood the truth. From his palace window, he could see human ships filling the sky like a wall of metal and fire. His generals begged him to surrender. His advisors pleaded for negotiation. "They cannot do it," insisted. "No species would destroy an entire world. They are bluffing." He was still saying those words when the sixth hour began. The Prometheus array consisted of 3 massive ships, each one larger than any vessel in the fleet. They had traveled behind the main fleet, protected by a ring of destroyers. Now they moved into position, forming a perfect triangle around Prime. Admiral Sumi watched from the Final Word. Her face showed nothing. Her voice was steady. "Prometheus Array, report status. Array 1 ready. Array 2 ready. Array 3 ready." Sumi closed her eyes. For just a moment, she allowed herself to think about what she was about to do. 8 billion lives, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, artists and farmers and children who had never harmed anyone. Then she remembered his voice. "I'm scared." "Fire." 3 beams of pure white energy shot from the Prometheus ships. They punched through Prime's atmosphere like needles through paper, driving deep into the planet's core. The energy destabilized the mantle, starting a chain reaction that could not be stopped. From space, the human fleet watched as cracks appeared across the planet's surface. Magma erupted from wounds that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Oceans boiled away in minutes. The atmosphere ignited, wrapping the world in flames. Ensign turned away from her screen, unable to watch. Captain stared straight ahead, his face like stone. Across the fleet, soldiers wept openly, their tears floating in zero gravity. Prime took 11 minutes to die. When it was over, nothing remained but a field of burning rocks and ash, slowly spreading outward into the cold void of space. Admiral Sumi's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. It was soft now, almost gentle. Her name was, she was 7 years old. She liked to count stars and chase butterflies. She was afraid of the dark. She trusted everyone she met. The Admiral paused. "Remember that. Remember her. And remember what we became today because they killed her." The fleet turned away from the ruins of Prime and began the long journey home. Behind them, a tomb of 8 billion souls cooled slowly in the darkness. The message was clear: the galaxy would never forget. Humanity had arrived. 3 days after Prime died, the galaxy found its voice, and it screamed. The Galactic Assembly was the closest thing the universe had to a government. 42 species sent representatives to a massive station at the center of known space. They debated trade agreements and border disputes and scientific cooperation. They had never dealt with anything like this. Ambassador stood alone in the center of the assembly chamber. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and calm eyes. Around her, representatives from dozens of species shouted accusations and demands. "Genocide," screamed the ambassador, his tentacles waving wildly. "The humans have committed genocide." "They destroyed an entire civilization," added the representative. 8 billion dead, this cannot go unanswered." Waited, she let them shout until their voices grew tired. Then she raised her hand and activated a holographic projector. His face appeared above the assembly floor, not the smiling birthday photo, but a recording from the final moments. Her eyes were wide with fear. Tears ran down her cheeks. Her small voice filled the chamber. "I'm scared." The assembly fell silent. "This child," said, "was 7 years old. She walked into a room she didn't understand. For this crime, they executed her. They made her father watch. When we asked for justice, they laughed at us." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative. "You call us monsters. You call us genocidal. Where was your outrage when they butchered our daughter? Where was your galactic assembly then?" No one answered. Any species that harms a human child will receive the same response. This is not a threat. It is a promise. We did not ask to become this. You made us this. Live with it. She deactivated the hologram and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the assembly erupted into chaos. On Earth, the reaction was different. The news showed celebrations in some cities, crowds waving flags, chanting that humanity had finally shown its strength. But in other places, people gathered in silence. They held candles and photographs, not of, but of the billions of who had died. Was a journalist who traveled from city to city, recording both reactions. In Seoul, he found an old man sitting alone in a park, staring at nothing. "My grandfather fought in the last war," the old man said. "He told me that killing changes you, even when it's justified, even when you had no choice." He looked at with hollow eyes. "We killed 8 billion people in 6 hours. How does a species recover from that?" In Tokyo, found a celebration. Young people danced in the streets, drinking and laughing. "They killed a little girl," one of them shouted. "They deserved what they got. Humanity #1. Recorded it all. He didn't know what to think anymore. President gave no public speeches. She stayed in her office, reading reports and taking calls from other world leaders. The decision weighed on her like a stone around her neck. She had ordered the death of 8 billion people. History would remember her for that, no matter what else she accomplished. Late one night, she received a message from the Confederacy. They were the most powerful species in known space. They had built empires when humanity was still learning to make fire. Their opinion mattered more than any other. The message contained only 5 words. "We understand. We remember too." Stared at those words for a long time. What did they remember? What had they done in their long history that made them understand humanity's choice? She wanted to ask, but she was afraid of the answer. Captain returned to Earth as a hero. Crowds cheered when his ship landed. Politicians wanted to shake his hand. The media called him the sword of humanity. He ignored all of it. Went to the memorial garden where his daughter was buried. He sat beside her grave as the sun set and the stars came out. He stayed there all night, not speaking, not moving. When morning came, he finally spoke. "I told myself I was doing it for you," he said to the small gravestone. "For all the children they killed, But now I don't know. Were you watching? Are you proud of what your father did? Or are you ashamed? The grave gave no answer. The dead never do. He submitted his resignation the next day. The military refused to accept it. They said humanity needed heroes, needed symbols of strength. Didn't care what humanity needed. He couldn't look at himself in the mirror anymore. Doctor, the scientist who had built the Prometheus array, also couldn't escape the weight of her creation. She had designed a weapon capable of destroying worlds. She had watched it work perfectly. Every equation, every calculation, flawless. She started drinking. First a little, then a lot. One night she found herself standing on the roof of her research facility, looking at the stars. "I built something beautiful," she whispered, "and they used it to kill 8 billion people." She stepped back from the edge, but only barely. The guilt would follow her for the rest of her life. Across the galaxy, 17 species formally condemned humanity. 4 severed all diplomatic ties. Trade agreements collapsed. Scientific partnerships ended. Humanity had made itself an outcast. But something else happened too. Reports came in from the frontier colonies. Pirates who had raided human ships for decades suddenly vanished. Hostile species that had threatened human settlements went quiet. Everyone was watching. Everyone was afraid. The price of human blood had been set. The galaxy had seen it paid. Whether that was victory or tragedy, no one could say. 1 year passed. The galaxy kept turning. Stars burned and planets spun and life continued in all its strange forms, but nothing was the same. Admiral Sumi never gave a single interview. She refused all medals and honors. When reporters found her address, she moved. When they found her again, she moved again. Eventually, she took command of a defense station at the edge of human space, as far from Earth as she could get while still serving. Every night, she sat alone in her quarters and looked at a photograph. Not of, she had never met the girl. The photograph showed Sumi herself as a young officer, standing beside her husband and baby daughter. They had died 30 years ago in a shuttle accident. Sumi had spent her whole career building walls around that pain. Now she had become something the galaxy feared. The Annihilator, they called her, the woman who killed a world. She didn't feel like a monster. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt empty. On Earth, a foundation opened its doors in a small building in Seoul. The sign above the entrance read, "The Foundation for Understanding." Its founder was mother. Had spent months in darkness after her daughter's death. She had wanted to hate. She had wanted revenge. But as time passed, she realized something. Hatred would not bring back. 8 billion dead would not bring her little girl home. So she chose a different path. "My daughter loved everyone," told the reporters at the Foundation's opening. She saw wonder in every new thing she discovered. If she had lived, she would have wanted to understand not destroy them. "I can't change what happened, but I can try to make sure it never happens again." The Foundation taught human children about alien cultures. It brought together scholars from different species to study each other's histories. It worked slowly, quietly, planting seeds of understanding in a galaxy filled with fear. Not everyone approved. Some humans called a traitor. Some aliens called her foundation a trick. But she kept working, kept teaching, kept believing that something better was possible. Captain found a new purpose too. The military finally accepted his resignation, and he took a teaching position at the Naval Academy. He taught a class called The Weight of Command. Every semester began the same way. Would stand before his students, young men and women who dreamed of glory and adventure, and ask them a simple question. Is there a line between justice and genocide? And if there is, did we cross it? The students never knew how to answer. That was the point. Didn't want them to have easy answers. He wanted them to think, to struggle, to understand that every choice carried weight. One student asked him if he regretted what he had done at Prime. Thought for a long time before answering. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that we live in a universe where such choices exist, but if you're asking whether I would do it again—" He paused. "Ask me that question after someone kills your daughter. Then you'll understand why I can't give a simple answer." The survivors, 200,000 who had escaped before the destruction, scattered across the galaxy. They settled on refugee stations and borrowed colonies, trying to rebuild something from nothing. Was one of them. He had been 8 years old when his parents pushed him onto an evacuation shuttle and stayed behind. He remembered his mother's face through the window as the shuttle lifted off. He remembered the moment when Prime started to break apart below him. Now he was 9, living on a trading station at the edge of neutral space. He worked as a mechanic's assistant, fixing engines and cleaning parts. He didn't go to school. He didn't have friends. He just worked and ate and slept and tried not to think about the nightmares. One day, a human cargo ship docked at the station. Watched from a distance as the crew climbed out. They were strange creatures, soft-skinned, no scales, small and fragile-looking. Hard to believe they had destroyed his entire world. The ship needed repairs. The station's chief mechanic sent to help. He walked toward the ship slowly, his heart pounding. This would be the first time he had ever spoken to a human. The pilot was a young woman with dark hair and tired eyes. She was sitting in the cockpit checking systems. When she saw, she nodded. "You're the mechanic's assistant. Good. The cooling system's been acting strange." Nodded and got to work. He tried not to look at her, but his eyes kept drifting to the console. A small photograph was pinned there. It showed a little human girl with bright eyes and a wide smile, holding a stuffed animal. "My niece," the pilot said, noticing his gaze. "She died last year." His hand stopped moving. He stared at the photograph. The girl looked young, 7, maybe 8 years old, about the same age he had been when. "I'm sorry," he said. The words came out before he could stop them. The pilot looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. She saw his scales, his young face, his eyes that had seen too much. She said. It wasn't a question. Nodded. He waited for the anger, the hatred, the blame. Instead, the pilot let out a long breath. "Yeah, me too. Sorry, I mean." She rubbed her eyes. "It's all just a mess, isn't it?" Didn't know what to say. He had expected screaming. He had expected violence. He had not expected this tired woman with sad eyes who looked as broken as he felt. "My parents are dead," he said finally. "Everyone I knew is dead." "I know," she said. "I'm sorry, I really am." They sat in silence for a while. Outside the cockpit window, stars burned in the endless black. Somewhere out there, a field of rubble marked where 8 billion people had once lived. Somewhere else, a memorial garden held the names of all the human children killed by raiders over the centuries. So much death, so much pain, would it ever end? The pilot reached out and unpinned the photograph. She looked at it for a moment, then held it out too. Her name was, I want you to see her, to know she was real. Took the photograph with trembling hands. The girl in the picture smiled up at him, innocent and happy, frozen in a moment before everything went wrong. "She's beautiful," he whispered. She was, the pilot agreed. She would have grown up to be something amazing. Now we'll never know. She took the photograph back and pinned it to the console again. "I don't know how to fix what happened. I don't know if it can be fixed, but I know that hating you won't bring her back, and I'm tired of hating." Nodded slowly. "I'm tired too." They finished the repairs in silence. When left, the pilot called after him. "Hey kid, what's your name?" She almost smiled. "If you ever need help find a human ship, tell them sent you. Not everyone is angry anymore." Walked back to the mechanic's shop. He felt strange, lighter somehow, like a weight he hadn't known he was carrying had shifted slightly. Nothing was forgiven. Nothing was forgotten. The pain was still there, sharp as ever. But for the first time since his world died, he felt something that might have been hope. In the silence between two wounded species, Something fragile was beginning. Whether it was forgiveness, understanding, or simply exhaustion, neither could say. But it was a start. And sometimes a start is enough.